Hello, welcome to my channel. Another bibliophile reads. My name is Greg, and I am here to do a weekly wrap-up of week 7 of my Read What You Own Platinum Challenge, where I'm challenging myself to read 100 books that I already own before I buy another book, with some exceptions. And this challenge will eventually morph into the 500 book challenge once I'm done with 100 books. And this, as I said, for week 7 between December 18th and December 24th. This video is a little late. I intended to record on Sunday and upload on Monday. However, holidays got in the way, and my wife had a house party with some guests afterwards on Tuesday, which also got in the way of recording and uploading. So this has been a little late. It was also not a very good week for reading. Lots of things were going on, and I was also reading a very long digital book, which I did not finish for this week, and listening to another long audiobook, which also I did not finish for week 7. So there are only 3 meager entries for this week. But the first book I finished was reading a play, No Exit, by Jean-Paul Sartre. This was because France won. It's a category and defeated England for the World Cup readathon. And I eventually got around to reading something by an author from France. And this is a play that I have read before. And I think it is one of the great plays of the 20th century. It contains 3 characters, 4 if you consider a very minor valet. Garçon, Inez, and Estelle. And they are in hell, decorated in the Second Empire. Is that what they called it? Second Empire? Yes, Second Empire style, which I had to look up on the internet, and is gaudy as hell. So these 3 characters are in hell, trying to deal with each other. And it is stressful to be locked in a room with no escape that is gaudy as hell, with 3 people that you absolutely detest. Now, as a reader, I detest them all, but each person detests the other 2 stuck in the room with them. They just do not get along. They are totally contradictory to each other. And it is horrifying and hilarious and thought-provoking all at once. It contains perhaps one of the most famous lines of, let's just say 20th century dramatic lines. There's a line that just, if you know the line I'm talking about, yeah, I totally agree with Jean-Paul Sartre about what hell is. And what is more amazing is that this play was put on during the Nazi occupation of France. And I don't know how they got that by the Nazi censors. Maybe they thought it was just sort of wry, and being in hell, it had no standard in, or not no standard, no standing in reality. But it's a powerful play. It's also very short. You can read it in a few hours. And I highly recommend it to everyone who loves literature and loves drama. The next book I finished was Under the Wide and Starry Sky by Nancy Horan. And this was an audiobook. Now, this is a book that I am reading for an in-person book group. I do not own it. So I had to get it from the library. So it does not count towards my reading totals of my 100 book goal. But I did read it, and it's a very interesting book. It is a historical novel about the wife of Robert Louis Stevenson. How he, Robert Louis Stevenson, met an older woman. She's about 10 years older than him, when she was traveling abroad in Europe. And he fell madly in love with her and married her, even though she had 2 children. Oh, she had 3 children when he met, but one passed away. And It is a very well done historical novel. You get to understand the woman behind this great creative genius, and you get to understand a little bit more about how Robert Louis Stevenson worked. And he was a very sickly man, and I won't go into all the details, but he felt best when he was on the sea and in the South Seas because he had a lung disease. And you get to know the wife as well. She was a force behind him, and she did carry him. And according to this story, she is greatly responsible for keeping him alive when his disease would have otherwise killed him. So I can recommend this book. I don't say it's going to be a great book, but the author, Nancy Horan, I think is getting a little bit of a tradition where she writes about the women behind famous men. I also read her novel, Loving Frank, which was about the woman behind Frank Lloyd Wright. So if you are interested in the personal lives of famous creators like Robert Louis Stevenson or Frank Lloyd Wright, I can highly recommend this. I know that in this, she had a chapter of how Robert Louis Stevenson came to write Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I found that chapter so fascinating that I got out my old ebook and reread that novel. But I reread that last week. So highly recommend it. The last book that I finished was also audio. It is Sineater by Elizabeth Massie. Now this is roughly based on real folk religious traditions down in Virginia. This book was written or published in 1992. It is set about a decade earlier, so early 80s, maybe a little bit earlier. And in this, there is a religious tradition called the Sineater. And when a person dies, people place food on the body of the deceased. And the Sineater comes to eat the food because the food has absorbed all the body's sin. And once the body is sinless, it can ascend into heaven. But the Sineater must live alone in the woods and not contact anyone else. But this particular Sineater has a wife and a family that he only rarely sees. He visits the wife late at night when the children are asleep. And this story is mostly focused about one of the Sineater's sons, who is he's a young boy, about 6th grade, something like that. And he is an outcast in his school because his father, they all know, is the Sineater. But mysterious things start happening in this town. And the son of the Sineater is investigating who is responsible for crimes. Is it his father, the Sineater, or is it someone else? Now, this book is fascinating. It is categorized as horror, probably Southern Gothic horror. It's not a supernatural horror book, but it is rather chilling in places because it takes you into this aberrant religious beliefs of some people. And it's rather chilling what some people will believe and call their religious traditions and think it's good. So I like this novel a lot. I can highly recommend it. So that is all that I finished. As I said, I was reading some other longer books this week, and they will come up in next week's wrap up. I am also read some of Dangerous Visions, edited by Harlan Ellison. For the most part, I have not been enjoying those short stories. I might do a complete review of that book once I am done. I have also read some short stories by H.P. Lovecraft for the Cthulhu Christmas, and that was a lot of fun. I will do a complete review of my Cthulhu Christmas later on at the end of this month. Well, thanks for watching, and keep on reading.